Spain along with Jerry Garrett. Daytona Speed Week's 1985 is thundering toward a 160-mile-an-hour conclusion tomorrow. That's a big story today on MotorWeek. It's Bike Week at the world's most famous beach. A couple of 100,000 folks have poured into town to celebrate the 44th annual reunion known as the Daytona Motorcycle Classic. The racing and the partying have been going strong since last Sunday. Jerry Garrett will help us cover that Bike Week story today.
Dave, Freddie Spencer is on the pole for tomorrow's Daytona 200, the world's most prestigious and richest motorcycle race. We'll have his story a little later.
And Jerry also has a first-ever win in off-road racing and a visit with Johnny Rutherford. But first, the opening of the World of Outlaw sprint car season. At Mesquite, Texas, the story is one of the most bitter rivalries in racing. The baddest outlaw of them all, that's Steve Kinser. He went to the opener looking for his 7th championship. Sammy Swindell, only man ever to beat Kinser for the title. Those two rivals are on the front row. Swindell looking for his 400th feature win. Outside in red, those two get at it right away. Watch Kinser pull the wheels. Hard drive off turn 2. Bang! He and Swindell collide. Jeff Swindell right behind T-Bone's big brother. They get upside down. Nobody hurt, but Sammy is mad. He goes looking for Kinser. A big crowd broke up the scuffle, but it was dark by the time they finally ran the feature. Kinser led every lap of the main event once they got it restarted. Swindell suffered 2 restart penalties, and he finished 8th. Now we go to motorcycles. In the spring, a young man's fancy turns to 2 wheels, and not just in Daytona Beach. Costa Mesa, California is synonymous with speedway bike racing in America. This is where some of the greatest international stars have made their names. And the Coors Spring Classic, well, it spells a great season for this stadium's loyal fans. Here's Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz, former World Pairs champion. He's match racing U.S. national champ Kelly Moran. Schwartz will race in Europe this year, but Moran in blue says he can make more money at Costa Mesa. You want to know why the fans love Moran? Watch this finish. Big wheelie around the outside. Kelly wins it. Sellout throng goes crazy in the background. 1 minute the hero, next minute the GOAT. Elimination heat action. Moran trapped inside, goes on his head. Say goodnight to the national champion. Semifinals. Who's got the right line? Pole sitter Mike Faria goes in low, comes out last, falls off, and takes Sterling Koger with him. Second semifinal now. You'll be seeing Stan Ermolenko. He wants the transfer spot to the main event, but, ooh, he gets a face full of motorcycle instead. And on to the final, where Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz, second from the outside, big favorite. He slides wide, almost gets the wall in turn 2, and the man to watch becomes John Sandona, number 20, down low. He holds the line and takes a dark horse victory. It looks like it's going to be one great season of motorcycle competition. There's your winner, Sandona. Great night at Costa Mesa, California. And we'll be back to review the Slam Bang Rockingham stock car action right after this. Of NASCAR Winston Cup stock car winner picks ended last Sunday at Rockingham, North Carolina by the narrowest of margins. 2 great racers went 500 flat-out miles, and at the end, the difference was about that much. My pick, Harry Gant, inside short by inches. As Benny Phillips tells us, races like this are won by the driver who is the hungriest, or in this case, the thirstiest.
Neil Bonnet had been to the well 33 times, but Sunday afternoon at North Carolina Motor Speedway, he drew water. Bonnet started from the second row with Grand National champion Terry Labonte and Darrell Waltrip leading the way. Number 44, Labonte, stayed near the front all afternoon as one challenger after another made a bid for the leading row. Number 11, Darrell Waltrip, fell off the pace with a broken drive shaft. And number 22, Bobby Allison, had clutch problems. And it proved to be a second tough week for Ford drivers. Number 9, Bill Elliott, and number 15, Ricky Rudd, both crashed as they did a week ago at Richmond. Rudd blew another engine and hit the wall, spinning onto the infield apron. For Elliott, it was an exact repeat of the previous week. He blew a tire and hit the wall, destroying his second straight Thunderbird. The accident left the Daytona 500 winner with a hairline fracture of the left leg. The race came down to a 4-man duel, with Labonte still setting the pace, with number 12, Bonnet, and number 33, Gant, challenging. Number 75, Lake Speed, the big surprise this year, was lurking in the shadows of the lead pack, waiting for an opportunity which never came. Labonte, Gant, and Bonnet swapped the lead and sheet metal during the last 35 miles, and then it came down to Bonnet and Gant in a classic last lap shootout.
As we come back going in the first turn, I saw him slip a little bit going in the corner. I said, if he'll just do that in 3 and 4, let me get up under him, we'll have a shot at him. And sure enough, going in the third turn, he hit in the bottom and slid up enough for me to get up under him, and from there it was just a drag race to the line.
This was Bonnett's first win since 1983 and his first victory since joining the Junior Johnson team at the beginning of 1984. He went through last season without winning, and after the final race, considered quitting the Johnson team.
Well, Junior and I discussed that. I didn't want to be a hamper to a team the caliber of his, and we decided, Junior said, we got 2 more years together and you're going to win some races, and so I'm tickled to death. I stayed, and Junior's been a good moral sport for me.
From North Carolina Motor Speedway, for MotorWeek Illustrated, I'm Benny Phillips.
Well, Neil Bonnet didn't vote for this week's Wrangler U.S. Air Force Reserve Behind the Scenes Award winner, but we'll bet he'll like our choice for keeping the faith and keeping one of stock car racing's finest drivers in his seat despite a major league slump. Budweiser Chevy owner and stock car legend Junior Johnson gets a new outfit from Wrangler. Well, Bill Elliott says he will drive the next Winston Cup race a week from tomorrow at Atlanta International Raceway, leg fracture and all. Brother and crew chief Ernie Elliott, upset about NASCAR's rule allowing only 2 tire changes under the yellow flag, is frantically rebuilding race cars, and that left brother Dan to take last year's Atlanta car to a test session Wednesday.
You've got to understand that this is family, and the main concern in both our minds is Bill's safety. And in that point, I'll argue that we need to be able to change 4 tires just for safety, because I don't think anybody's any closer to driver than we are, and we sure don't want our driver hurt.
Lake Speed says 3rd place in the Carolina 500 last year was the turning point in his career. People finally accepted him as something other than a go-kart racer. Sunday, 4th place for Lake at Rockingham, and he's leading the richest Winston Cup point race ever. You'll recall Speed didn't even have a sponsor until a few hours before the Daytona 500. Now let's get that off-road racing story. Jerry Garrett spent last weekend in and around Laughlin, Nevada.
Frank Snook is 54 years old, a public school administrator in Riverside, California, and a part-time desert racer. Snook is one of the High Desert Racing Association's steadiest drivers. Snook's regular co-driver, Dave Regalia, behind him there in the black jacket, is injured. So in last weekend's Laughlin Desert Challenge, young Eric Harris teamed up with Snook to pursue that elusive overall victory. The Ironman, Ivan Stewart, started first and set a torrid early pace. But Stewart's Toyota truck couldn't stand the strain. Between repairs, it was still fast, but out of contention. Harris started 11th, but at quarter distance, he was 5th. At halfway, up to 2nd. Then Snook took over and pulled out front to stay. Harris, meanwhile, relieved his father Henry in their Class 5 1600 Beetle. Young Eric was soon in front there, too, and headed for a rare double victory. In the heavy metal classes, Walker Evans ran out front, but he was unable to challenge the buggies for the overall lead as he has previously. So, Snook had little to do but keep out of trouble. And that was no easy task on a course this tough and this crowded. A huge entry turned out. But Snook's reputation for steadiness was accurate, and it paid off with his first overall victory in years of trying. The first, by the way, for a driver over 50.
Get tired of being second all the time. Once in a while, you have to get lucky, I guess.
Here's a look at some of how the other classes finished. Class 10 winner Marty Ryder was 2nd overall, 6 minutes behind Snook. Penhall and Gardner were 3rd overall, despite a flat tire.
Jerry will be right back to visit with a famous birthday boy, and Chris Economaki asks one of racing's toughest questions when MotorWeek had an off season. One such guy is celebrating a birthday this week, though he might resent being called an old-timer. Here again is Jerry Garrett.
When I first started covering Indianapolis car racing, the off season went from about June 1st to April 30th. There was the Indianapolis 500, and there was getting ready for the Indianapolis 500, and not a lot else. Now, IndyCar racing is a full-season sport. There are 16 really big races and a lot of testing. A veteran like Johnny Rutherford has seen it all.
Now, it's almost turned into a 25-hour-a-day, 8-day-a-week job. You've got to go do it because you always find out something, especially with the new type of cars and the things that are happening today. You've got to go run and find out, and when somebody else does, if you don't, they've got the leg up.
Young, hard chargers like Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti keep the pressure on. They're out testing and training constantly. Rutherford, who turns 47 this week, knows he's got to do more than just test to stay competitive.
47, I've got to look at my physical conditioning a little stronger and try to watch what I eat and keep things down and work out a little bit to stay in shape. And of course, to handle one of these cars today, you've got to be in pretty good shape because they're physical, despite what anybody says about how easy it is to drive a ground effect car.
The past couple of years haven't been easy on Rutherford. Serious crashes kept him out of full-time action since 1982. He's really not been a major force in IndyCar racing since the 1970s, his Team McLaren years, when he won 3 Indy 500s. What keeps him going?
I want number 4. I've looked for 2 years trying to find the ingredients that I know that it takes to win Indianapolis again, and I think I found them with Vermont American and with Alex Foods Racing Team, John Caples. They know what they want, and I do too. And I said many years ago when I went with Team McLaren that if I ever found anybody that wanted to go racing as badly as I did, I'd have a winner. And I think I found that again.
A generation after he debuted at Indy, maybe this is the year Rutherford finally wins number 4. For MotorWeek Illustrated, this is Jerry Garrett.
For salty old-timers and newcomers alike, speed and safety are continuing questions on the mind of our Chris Economaki.
Reports coming into the Office of National Speed Sport News from the IndyCar scene are, to me, most disturbing. It seems that the technicians are taking the sport away from the drivers. The man-machine equation today is 85-15, with the driver only 15% of the equation. Now, I have no argument with designers, engineers, physicists, and aerodynamicists, but I like it when brave men drove big cars, and A.J. Foyt put a red bandana around his face and drove off into the first corner. And that's okay, because that's my opinion. But what's a matter of concern is what this new technology is doing to lap speeds. We've had 2 fatalities already in racing, both on high-speed tracks, and the season has hardly begun. As the lap speeds go up, the danger increases. Bobby Rahal lapped the Phoenix Mile at an incredible 160 miles an hour recently, leading to predictions that to win the pole for the Indianapolis 500, someone will probably have to go about 220 miles an hour. And when you crash at those speeds, the results can be devastating. Think of what Mike Chandler might have gone through a year ago on this horrific crash had he been going 10 miles an hour faster. And at those great speeds, passing is very difficult. As Jack Ickx, the great Belgian racing driver, once said many years ago, racing is passing, not following.
Chris, what's the answer? What do we do about all this speed escalation?
Well, Dave, I think the rules makers have got to sit down and address this problem. Racing rules need major surgery, not a Band-Aid.
Thank you, Chris Economaki. Now let's take a quick look at one lap of America. Downtown Detroit was the starting point this week for motojournalist Brock Yates' tribute to endurance driving legend Cannonball Baker. Here's Japanese restaurant owner and boat racer Rocky Aoki leaving on a week-long 8,000-mile drive that ends back in the Motor City this weekend. Now, Rocky has had a little tough luck. He reportedly spun his rolls. Someone in the back seat bumped his head on the onboard microwave and spilled the teriyaki. Again, it is Bike Week at Daytona, and that's the inspiration as Valvoline presents another page from Ken Squire's Racing Scrapbook.
Hello, everybody. Now, another great moment in motorsports.
March 11th, 1984, Daytona Beach, Florida. The eyes of the motorcycle world are on Daytona International Speedway and on Kenny Roberts, the first American to win the World Grand Prix Motorcycle Championship. Roberts wants one more page in the history book. He wants to become only the 4th man, the first in the last 20 years, to win the prestigious Daytona 200 3 times. At the start, Roberts is joined on the point by teammate Eddie Lawson and by the red, white, and blue of reigning world champion Freddie Spencer. Robert presses the attack, winding through traffic with his customary fearless riding. Near midway, Lawson drops back with tire problems. Roberts and Spencer are left to battle at speeds approaching 180 miles per hour. Suddenly, Spencer's in trouble. His tires, too, have fallen victim to the blistering pace set by Roberts. With Spencer gone, King Kenny rolls on into history with his 3rd Daytona 200 victory. I'm Ken Squire. Join me next week for another great moment in motorsports.
And we'll be back to check all this year's Daytona bike news right after this. Motorcycling, the American Motorcyclist Association's Daytona Speed Week is the biggest social event and competition happening of the year. A full week of racing concludes tomorrow with the 44th running of the world's biggest bike race, the Daytona 200. Let's review all the week's action now, beginning last Sunday. At Gainesville, Florida, en route to Daytona, the biggest names in the motocross wars ran the first outdoor national point payer of the year. 2 races with action like this in each of 3 classes. Best overall score wins. We check the 125 division first. George Holland upsets many-time class champ Mark Barnett, winner of last week's Atlanta Supercross. 250cc division. Now that was all Jeff Ward. He beat Bob Hanna and everybody else in 2 motos. Last year, Jeff lost this title after a tight season-long battle, but nobody could touch that Kawasaki Sunday. Ward wins. The often hurt Hanna scores his best finish in a long time. And Brock Glover won the 500 class while defending champ David Bailey is out of the top 5. Bailey crashed while leading 50 feet from the finish line in the first race. And now to the oval track action. Ted Booty in bike number 12 went looking for a second straight Daytona Busch half-mile win Sunday. Bob Varsha reports.
The Busch Half Mile is actually part of the 6-event Daytona Dirt Track Series that winds up this weekend in Daytona's Memorial Stadium with a total purse of more than $45,000. In Sunday's 12-lap feature over the banked oval of the Volusia County Fairgrounds, Pete Hames in the white jersey put his Harley-Davidson onto the inside line through turn 1. Hames opened it up from there and appeared ready to wave goodbye to the rest of the 12-bike field. But Steve Moorhead in the black helmet had other ideas. On lap 5, Moorhead moved past defending Busch half-mile champ Ted Booty into second place. By lap 8, Moorhead had closed a 10-bike length gap on Hames and taking the inside line down the backstretch, passed him for the lead. Behind, Booty had solved his Honda's traction problem and was moving up. He passed Hames as well, and with 1 lap to go, Booty was on Moorhead's rear wheel. Coming off turn 2, Moorhead slipped wide and Booty had to back off. That gave Moorhead all the room he needed to take the win, and with it, the series point lead. Adding insult to injury, Moorhead's average speed of just over 84 miles per hour easily broke Booty's track record. Reporting for MotorWeek Illustrated, I'm Bob Varsha.
And now the Bike Week spotlight has shifted to Daytona International Speedway and road racing. Jerry Garrett's been following that story. Jerry?
Well, Dave, the spotlight shines most brightly on Freddie Spencer, former world champion and past MotorWeek Racer of the Year. Spencer came to Daytona seeking an unprecedented triple, wins in the Formula 1 and Formula 2 preliminary races, and tomorrow's Daytona 200. In fact, the only race Freddie skipped this weekend was yesterday's Battle of the Twins, and it was a good one. Number 8, Gene Church, jumped to the early lead in this fast-growing class for 2-cylinder bikes. History buffs cheered number 155, Roger Riemann, as he moved up to battle for second. Riemann, 46 years old and a 3-time Daytona 200 winner, can still get the job done. He rode this race with a broken arm. The surprise story, number 611, Italian Marco Lucanelli, who moved up to swap the lead with Church. A former world champion, Lucanelli didn't enter his Cagiva until race morning, and he had to start dead last. On Church's shoulders ride the hopes of Harley-Davidson. Once the dominant team in Daytona racing, but now active only in the Twins race. And Gene did the Harleys proud, holding off Lucanelli's last lap assault to win by a length. Second, and a great ride for Lucanelli. And how about old Roger Riemann scoring a 4th-place finish, broken arm and all. In yesterday's Formula 1 race, Spencer's quest for the Daytona triple started from the pole, and it started badly. He bogged off the line and fell to 7th as number 1 Mike Baldwin, national champ in the class, took the lead. But it didn't take long for Freddie to regroup. He caught and passed Baldwin with ease, then survived a broken exhaust pipe and concerns about tire wear to score a runaway victory. That's Spencer's first Formula 1 win at Daytona. Baldwin said afterwards he was satisfied with 2nd place. Earlier today, Spencer cleared the 2nd hurdle in his ambitious quest, winning the Formula 2 race. He's now poised to complete the triple in tomorrow's 200. Spencer's on the pole in that race. The 200, by the way, is the only major career victory that has eluded him to date. And this just in, the Daytona Supercross is over. The winner, the old master, Bob Hanna.
Thank you, Jerry. Other headlines this week, John Watson is back in Formula 1 road racing. He signed with the Tolman Grand Prix team this week. And in a surprise move, Renault has pulled out of the IMSA RS Road Racing Series. That leaves Minnesota brothers Tommy and Bobby Archer, the 1-2 finishers in the series last year, high and dry. Next month's SCCA Trans Am race at Riverside, California has been canceled. The 6-hour Playboy Showroom Stock Endurance Series opener becomes the feature attraction. And NASCAR says it's still waiting for the Nashville short track situation to settle down before a decision is made on the 2 Winston Cup dates there. That track will go on the auction block March 15th. Finally, for Neil Bonnet, our Champion Spark Plug Racer of the Week award and a shot at a new Honda Sabre motorcycle that goes to our 85 Racer of the Year are the final touches on a sweet victory. Neil in red hadn't won in 33 starts when Harry Gant left the door open just a crack on the last lap at Rockingham Sunday. Bonnet didn't hesitate. He bowled his way through that opening and charged on to victory. Always one of the toughest money lap guys in the business, Bonnet's had a lot of trouble finishing lately, but finish he does this week. Neil Bonnet out of Hueytown, Alabama is our Champion Racer of the Week. And with that, we've got to go.
Well, I'm Jerry Garrett. We'll see you next week at this same time.
I'm Dave Despain. We leave you with more of that Speedway motorcycle action. And, of course, next week we'll have all the highlights of Daytona Bike Week. For Chris Economaki and everyone at MotorWeek, Dave Despain. See you next Saturday.
MotorWeek Illustrated was brought to you by Valvoline, makers of Turbo 5 and other fine motor oils. And by Dodge, makers of Ram Tough Dodge trucks, and by Dodge cars that will revolutionize your perspective of the road. We are Dodge, an American revolution.